Jezebel and Delilah. It's going to be very brief on that subject. The church is very aware of Jezebel, and you will often hear Jezebel mentioned. Jezebel mentioned in Revelation. She's also, of course, there in the Tanakh. Jezebel is a usurper. She is a feminist. Ahab, her husband, is a weak man. And we have a chicken and egg situation here. Did Jezebel's strength cause Ahab to be weak, or did Ahab's weakness cause Jezebel to usurp his authority? Just, we don't know. When we look at our society, we see more and more Jezebel behaviour, and we see a lot of very destructive feminist behaviour amongst married women. And I just want to make some points about Jezebel. Jezebel does not hate her husband. Jezebel, in fact, knows what her husband wants. And she knows that through the most nefarious and evil means, she can attain for him what he wants. And she decides to usurp his authority in order to get him what he wants through those evil and nefarious means. She usurps his authority to do something he would never, one would hope, never consider doing himself. And it's an outrageous and evil thing that she does. But she does not hate her husband. And that is interesting, because there are an awful lot of women in this world who really hate their husbands, who actually seek to undermine them, who mock them and belittle them, and have essentially, in some ways, castrated them through their behaviour towards their husbands. Their husbands are empty husks. They're no longer head of the family. They are constantly criticised, constantly boxed in, can do no right, and are just under an immense amount of pressure all the time to do as they are told and to obey their wives. And I've seen this again and again and again and again, and it is absolutely evil. So I want to talk a little bit about Delilah, because the church doesn't talk about Delilah, and Delilah is not the same as Jezebel. Now, I'm not saying that there's a Jezebel spirit. I'm not going to say that there's a Delilah spirit. They share some characteristics, there's no doubt about that, but Delilah is very different to Jezebel. She's not a feminist. Delilah is prepared to use her feminine wiles to get her way. She's prepared to weep and moan and mither and whine until she gets what she wants. She's prepared to use emotional blackmail, in other words, to find out the very things that will actually destroy her own husband. I mean, Delilah knows the plot. She's married to this man, and yet she's prepared to use her feminine wiles to be his undoing. Think about that. That is so many times worse in so many ways, culturally speaking, than feminism. It's a different kind of thing. So who is this woman, and where else do we see her? Where else do we see these characteristics? We see them in the Mata Hari. We see them in so many women, and we also see them, of course, in mythology with the sirens who called sailors to their deaths on the rocks. It's that kind of use of the feminine wiles in a really dangerous and worrying way. Within the law of Moses, we see that, and I don't have the reference to hand, but we see the story. We see the statutes regarding what happens when you want to take a wife from the nations around you. And I have a feeling this has something to do with conquest. Not entirely sure because I haven't looked it up, just as I'm saying this to you, because it's just come to mind. The rules are that she must have her head shaved, she must have her nails pared, and she is to remain like that. And I think she's to be left basically for 7 days. And if after 7 days you still find her desirable, you could marry her. But if not, you have humbled her and she must be set free. Now, I always thought that was a bit weird. But Dr. Michael Lake did a piece about this a few years ago, and he pointed out that these women would make up their faces, that they would do amazing things with their hair, that they would grow their nails. I don't know whether they painted or dyed them or what they did with them, but they had long nails. And that this was a lure, a snare to these men. And once they'd shaved these women's heads and pared their fingernails, they just became ordinary women again. So again, we see something that is beguiling and is designed to attract and effectively destroy men. When I see women who have everything done, they have a full face of makeup at all times, they have dyed hair, expensively coiffed, painted nails, they've had their teeth done, they look like little dolls. And two things occur to me. Either you have been raised to do that, in other words, you're following the pattern, you're effectively following the rules set down by your own mother as to what's acceptable and what's not. Or you have such crushingly low self-esteem that you think that that's the only way that you can be acceptable, both to yourself and to the opposite sex. And men, unfortunately, are very vulnerable to beauty. And one of the things I want to talk about is some of the things that have been done to us culturally, and the damage that that's done because men are vulnerable to these things. So I'm going to stop now and start yet another video. Did I say that was going to be brief? No, not as brief as I thought it was going to be. Hold on.